Welcome to the Conquest teleconferencing training demonstration. In this demonstration, we'll give you an introduction to how the interface works. More detailed training will take place later. First, let's begin by describing how you will need to staff your call. You will need to have a host, who is the person who will be doing most of the talking on the call. Then you'll have a moderator, who usually does a bit of on-air talking, including introducing the host and maybe instructing listeners how to raise their hand if they have a question. The moderator will also be doing most of the background tasks during the call. And you'll need at least 2 screeners. Their job is to screen the listeners who have questions. Now I'll show you how it works. To start, everyone who is staffing the call will go to the website conference.shoutpoint.com and log in with the PIN numbers that we've provided to you. Each staffer will see different screens depending on their role, host, moderator, or screener. Please make sure you're using either Firefox or Google Chrome as your browser. This is what the moderator screen will look like. 3 minutes before the call is scheduled to begin, the moderator will start dialing the list of potential participants by clicking Start on the Broadcast tab in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. When someone in the household answers the phone, they will hear a message instructing them how to join the call. If they choose to join, they will be placed on hold until you begin broadcasting. You can see how many listeners have connected on the Listeners tab. Once you feel you have enough listeners, you'll begin the broadcast by clicking Broadcast in the upper left of the screen. Once the call has gone live, the moderator will begin speaking. We'll probably give an overview of the structure of the call, how listeners can ask questions, and then we'll introduce the host. The host will then begin his or her presentation. As the host is speaking, listeners will begin raising their hands to ask questions. So let's talk next about the screeners. This is the screener interface. When screeners log in, they will be in automatic mode. They should change it to manual mode before the broadcast begins, so they can control which listeners they speak with and when. They do that by selecting Manual in the drop-down box next to Screening Delay. Screeners will see all of the listeners who have their hands raised in the box in the lower right that says Hands Raised Listeners. When they're ready to begin screening, they'll double-click on a listener in that box. That will move the listener to the box above the Current Question box. The screener will then be able to speak with the listener, find out what their question is, and type the question and any relevant notes in the boxes in the Current Question box. Once the screener is finished with the listener's question, they'll click Accept. This will return the listener to the broadcast, and the screener will move on to the next listener with their hand raised. That's pretty much all the screeners will be responsible for during the broadcast. Once the listeners have been screened, the moderator will handle them. So let's move back to the moderator interface. Once a listener has been screened, they will go into the Screened Questions box on the moderator's screen. The moderator can review all of the screened questions and decide which ones they want to have asked live on the air. When they select one for on air, they'll move it to the On Deck box by clicking on the listener and then clicking On Deck. When it's time to go live with the question, the host or moderator will introduce the listener, and the moderator will take the listener live by clicking on them in the On Deck box and clicking the Live button. The entire audience will now be able to hear that listener. Once the host is finished with the listener, the moderator will click Done, and the listener will no longer be on the air. Another great way to interact with your audience is to conduct a poll. Ideally, you will plan your polls in advance, and we will set them up for you before the call. But it's also possible and pretty simple to set up a poll during the call. Your listeners will respond to the poll using their telephone keypads. When it's time to run your poll, the moderator will click Prepare on the Polls tab in the bottom left of the screen. This will send a message to everyone staffing the call that you're ready to do the poll. The host will then read the poll question, read the answer choices, and instruct people how to use their telephone keypads to answer. And then the moderator will open the poll by clicking the Open button. Once the poll has been opened, listeners can enter their answers. You will be able to see their answers real-time in the Polls tab. When you want to stop taking answers, the moderator will click Close, and no more answers will be accepted. The host will then share the poll results with listeners. If you want to create a poll during the call, the moderator will go to the Poll Setup tab and click New, and type in the name of the question and the question text. To input the answer choices, click the green plus sign and type in the choices. When you're done, click Save, and your poll will be visible on the Poll Manager tab, ready to run whenever you'd like. The host, moderators, and screeners are able to send messages to each other during the call using the chat window. If you'd like to send a message, just type in your text, and if it's an important message that requires a response from everyone, click the red flag, then hit Enter, and the message will appear to all call staffers. When your host has finished his or her presentation and you're ready to end the broadcast, the host will thank everyone for participating, and the moderator will click End in the upper left corner. All listeners will be disconnected from the call. The moderator, host, and screeners will then need to log out at the bottom left of the screen. And that's the end of the call. As I said at the beginning, this serves merely as an introduction to the interface. You will receive more instructions and detailed training prior to your call. Thanks so much for your time.